Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1167 for June 21st, 2026, Father's Day. And here's wishing all of the dads out there a happy Father's Day. We have a story of father and son coming up in a few minutes.
It's probably a little surprise for me. I mean, I've, done a little videos here and there, but something like this was not really something I was thinking about.
Wild Turkey master distiller Eddie Russell celebrated his 45th anniversary at the distillery this month, and the brand produced a short movie honoring Eddie. His Own Way features some of Eddie's friends and family members, and just like Eddie did when Jimmy Russell celebrated his 45th anniversary, his son Bruce created a special Russell's Reserve edition. We'll talk with Eddie and Bruce Russell later on WhiskyCast In-Depth, and I'll have my tasting notes for that special Russell's Reserve, too. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast, whiskey's longest-running and most awarded podcast series.
Hey friends, it's Gabriel with Jewers here. If you're watching the U.S. Open this year, or you've got Father's Day coming up and you just want to get it right, there's a bottle that I would keep an eye out for. I'll explain.
Let's get started with the week's news. Diageo CEO Sir Dave Lewis has reportedly told his executives to cut staff and costs at the company. The Financial Times reports Lewis has set cost reduction targets instead of specific headcount numbers, and an internal announcement on layoffs could come as early as this week. A Diageo spokesperson told JustDrinks.com that the company's priority is to inform colleagues of organizational changes first. Shareholders will be updated at a Capital Markets Day on August 6th. The U.S. and India have trade talks planned this week. Spirits industry leaders are calling for a level playing field. India is the largest whiskey market by volume and recently reached trade agreements with the UK and European Union that cut tariffs on imported spirits. Distilled Spirits Council Chief Executive Chris Swanger asked the U.S. Trade Representative to secure tariff reductions on bourbon and other U.S. spirits to the same level that UK and European whiskeys face. Last year, India cut its tariff on bottled bourbon from 150% to 100%, and that resulted in a 22% increase in bourbon exports over the previous year. In other news, the Macallan is opening its first domestic boutique shop in the UK inside of Harrods in London. The space officially opened on Friday next to Harrods' wine and spirits department. The space includes a personalization and gifting station where customers can have their bottles engraved before being gift-wrapped. There is also a sampling bar. Old Pulteney is celebrating its 200th anniversary this year and has released a 30- and 50-year-old whiskey to mark the occasion. Only 1,000 bottles of the 30-year-old were produced, while just 200 bottles of the 50-year-old are available. The International Wine and Spirits Competition wrapped up its U.S. spirits judging earlier this month, and only 3 whiskeys reached Gold Outstanding status, along with 2 rums. The upcoming Locks of Jura 10-year-old barrel from Bardstown Bourbon Company scored 99 points in the judging, while Willett's Old Bardstown Bottled and Bond 4-year-old scored a 98, along with the new Coors Whiskey Company Blended American Malt Whiskey 8 years old. They'll advance to the trophy judging round along with other top-scoring spirits. Winners will be announced at the IWSC Awards celebration in November. More on that Coors whiskey now. It was unveiled this week and uses a blend of Coors' own proprietary malt with Colorado malt. It's available exclusively in Colorado and Illinois for now at a suggested retail price of $79.99. I received a sample this week and will have my tasting notes for it soon at whiskycast.com. Baijiu is the national spirit of China, and a unique partnership between East and West has resulted in the first Kentucky-matured Baijiu whiskey. Shang comes from red sorghum distilled first in China and then redistilled into whiskey at Whiskey House of Kentucky. The initial release, Shang Danya, was aged at the blending house in Kentucky for up to a year, while Shang East plus West blends the spirit with red sorghum whiskey distilled at Whiskey House. Both are available online with shipping to 42 states at shangwhiskey.com. Other new whiskeys unveiled this week. Berry Brothers and Rudd is introducing a new collection called The Old and the Bold, linking historic Scottish distilleries with upstarts from around the world. The initial release includes whiskies from Tamdhu, Blair Athol, Glengarry, Kalila, Glenwivis, Spirit of Yorkshire, Finland's Tirunpelli, and New Zealand's Thompson Distillery, just to name a few. They're available at specialist retailers in the UK. Meanwhile, Spirit of Yorkshire is marking its 10th year of distilling with a limited edition anniversary whiskey. Finally made 10th anniversary special release is a blend of whiskey aged in ex-bourbon and ex-Madeira wine casks and includes Spirit from cask number 1 filled 10 years ago this month. Only 2,016 bottles were produced, and they're available for £90 each through the Spirit of Yorkshire website and specialist retailers in the UK. England's Rosemont Distillery has released a 10-year-old orchard-cut English single malt. It's matured exclusively in ex-bourbon casks from Heaven Hill and Jim Beam and sells for £125 a bottle. California's Redwood Empire Distillery has a new wheated bourbon hitting the market. The Colonel Armstrong wheated bourbon gets its name from Civil War-era Colonel James Armstrong, who moved to Northern California after the war ended and preserved what is now known as Armstrong Woods. It's available for pre-orders now through the Redwood Empire website and will go on sale at retailers next month. Diageo's Blade and Bow Bourbon is introducing a new 12-year-old Solera Reserve that uses a multi-vat Solera finishing process designed by Nicole Austin, with cognac, port, and Bordeaux barrels in the Solera setup. It'll be available online and in select markets, including Kentucky, starting next month for $64.99 a bottle, and will be part of the Blade and Bow flight available at the Stitzerweller Distillery in Louisville. Sukhinder Singh of Elixir Distillers gave us the details on Tormore's new whiskeys a couple of months ago, but they're just now hitting the market. There's a timeless no-age statement expression priced at £41.95 a bottle, a 12-year-old priced at £54.95, and a 16-year-old sherry cask priced at £79.95 a bottle in the UK. They'll eventually be coming to the U.S. in a few months. Ireland's Boan Distillery is adding a new whiskey to its core single pot still range. Boan Legacy uses 7 different cask types and is bottled at 40% ABV. It sells for €55 per bottle at the Boan website. There's also a limited edition Summer Solstice cask strength version available through the website and the distillery shop while supplies last for €85 per bottle. France's Distillery 1892 has unveiled a new 6-year-old rye whiskey. Distillery 1892 is the distilling arm of Maison de Champagne Moutard, and the Moutard family collaborated with a local brewery to produce the wort for fermentation at the distillery using grape yeast. The whiskey was matured exclusively in a Ratafia Champenois Pinot Noir cask from the Moutard family estate and is available through the distillery's website for €86 a bottle. Jason Wooler is back in the spirits business. The longtime distributor executive had to take some time away from the business after a stroke, but has now founded Wooler Brands along with his family. He's produced a Bardstown distilled bourbon under the Wooler Whiskey brand name. It's a 5-year-old bourbon matured in number 3 char barrels, and it's currently available in California and Georgia, with more states expected in the coming months. The price tag, $39.99 a bottle. And finally, My Lemon Green is releasing an American whiskey for America's 250th. Liberty is a unique blend of pot distilled whiskey from My Lemon Green's distillery in Blanco, Texas, with a column distilled whiskey from Bardstown, all aged in their own once-used ex-bourbon barrels. 250 bottles will go on sale Wednesday through the My Lemon Green website, and 500 will be available at the distillery for pickup before the 4th of July. No word on pricing. I received a sample this week. I'll have my tasting notes for it in a few minutes. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. Let's open up the calendar now and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. The Kensington Wine Market has a tasting of whiskeys from That Boutique Whiskey Company Tuesday night in Calgary, Alberta. Julio's Liquors in Westboro, Massachusetts has a Whiskey Wednesday tasting of 250th anniversary whiskeys from around the U.S. Thursday night, the Whiskey Exchange has an English whiskey and wine tasting at its London Bridge shop in London. Friday, the Isle of Arran Whiskey Festival gets underway in Lacranza, Scotland, and runs through the weekend. Next week, Julio's Liquors has a Whiskey Wednesday tasting with the folks from Clyde May's Alabama Whiskey, and the following week, the Aberdeen Whiskey Shop in Aberdeen, Scotland, has a tasting of whiskeys from the independent bottler Woodrow's of Edinburgh on July 9th. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app.
Every year, we've been releasing a Dewar's 19-Year-Old Champions Edition alongside the U.S. Open, a limited release whiskey that's directly tied to the tournament. Now, 19 years is not a number you see every day on a bottle of whiskey, but in golf it kind of makes sense. The 19th hole, that round after the round. The stories usually are a little better than some folks' scorecards. This year, the championships at Shinnecock Hills in Long Island, and instead of just putting that on the label and calling it a day, we build it into the whiskey. After 19 years of maturation, this whiskey's finished in Cabernet Franc wine casks from Wolfer Estate, right there on Long Island. So there's a real connection to the place, not just in name, but in the liquid itself. On the palate, you'll get some of that red fruit, with a bit of floral lift and a touch of spice from the higher ABV, but it still drinks like Dewar's. Honeyed, soft oak, balanced, nothing is out of place. It also lands right around Father's Day, making it an easy gift. Limited release, once a year, with Shinnecock Hills on the bottle. Great for golf fans, but just really a well-made whiskey. Keep an eye out for it. Copyright 2026, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 43% alcohol by volume.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. The Russell family has been handing down bourbon knowledge for 3 generations. Back in 2000 or so, Eddie Russell created the first Russell's Reserve bottling to honor Jimmy Russell's 45th anniversary at Wild Turkey. And now, Bruce Russell has created a new Russell's Reserve bottling to honor Eddie Russell's 45th anniversary. The folks at Wild Turkey have created something else to honor Eddie's anniversary, a short film titled Eddie Russell, His Own Way. It'll be playing at theaters around the country and had its premiere Wednesday night at the Alamo Drafthouse Theater in Lower Manhattan. That's where I caught up with Eddie and Bruce Russell. Knowing you, I can imagine you're really thrilled with the whole idea of a movie being made about your life.
Yeah, it was probably a little surprise for me. I mean, I've, done a little videos here and there, but something like this was not really something I was thinking about.
What went into making the movie?
We actually did it over a spring and then come back the next year. And so we did it basically in 2 years. And it started out just a few interviews and just sort of doing daily stuff. And then we got into some really good stuff. Some of my friends got all. My wife was in the video, so it turned out to be totally amazing after I seen it. I don't know what I was really expecting, but it was an amazing film when we seen it.
Tell me about 45 years at Wild Turkey. What's changed over the years?
Well, there's so many things, not just a better distillery, a lot of money invested in our distillery, but our consumers changed immensely, especially in the last 25 years. I mean, all we had were older gentlemen drinking bourbon, and now it's young men and women. I mean, if you come to our visitor center, you see just as many young women there checking out the bourbon scene as you do the men, and that's something that's just truly amazing to me.
How did you start out at the distillery? Jimmy had you starting out mowing lawns, if I remember right.
I went there, of course, it's union, so when I went there, I was the bottom man in the union. Luckily, they hired a few more. About a week later, got me up a little bit. But, yeah, whatever anybody didn't want to do, I had to do. And a lot of that was mowing grass, dumping bottles. Back then, we actually had to dump the bottles out of the case to get it started on the bottling line. So that was not a job most people wanted to do. So I did that quite a bit. But I really loved working in the warehouse. I got to do that quite a bit also, rolling the barrels. And, of course, I knew everybody there, so it was a lot of friends. So it was pretty easy for me.
I have to ask, how much longer are you going to do this? Are you going to be like Jimmy and stick around until you're 90 or so?
Well, Jimmy will be 92 soon, and he spent the afternoon at the visitor center last week, and now he can't get around too well. So hopefully I'll be a little bit smarter about it than he is. But I think it's the passion. I think that's something I've also seen in Bruce. If you don't have that passion for it, you're not going to stick around, For several years, I thought, I may just retire and move on. But, you still love getting out talking to people. You still love doing things like we're doing. It's been such a great privilege to see what Bruce is doing. A little different than Jimmy and me, but, you still have fun doing it and you still enjoy what you're doing. Why quit? You can't just go home and sit down.
Tell me about the Russell's Reserve they released to honor your 45th anniversary.
It is amazing. It's the perfect mark because I released the Russell's 10 for Jimmy's 45th anniversary. Our company thought he was going to retire. Of course, it was a 10-year-old 101 proof, was what Jimmy was all about, 101 proof. So to see that full circle come now, hopefully I have a grandson or daughter that comes along and does it for Bruce on his 45th anniversary. But there's so many special things that went into this. We accidentally run into some 18-year-old barrels filming. Some of those barrels wound up in this batch where they actually turned 19 by then. So just the whole ordeal of working with Bruce on this and making sure it was what I'd always liked better. The more caramels, vanillas, not as big and bold as the 101. So it was just a perfect thing to do.
You've always been interested in older bourbons, haven't you?
Yeah, and that started from the second week I was there. I know I've told this story a lot of times. The first Friday I worked in the warehouse, all the people disappeared about 3 o'clock, and they didn't take me with them. And the second week, those supervisors said, come with me, and he took me up on the 4th floor of our actual original warehouse, and he got me a taste out of a barrel, and it was probably 14, 15 years old at that time. And to this day, I still think it was the best taste of bourbon I've ever had in my life. But just doing those samplings and seeing, because Jimmy never liked anything much over 8 or 10 years old. And, when I got in there and started seeing, I loved what that barrel did to it, giving it more of that flavor, more intense flavor. So it was really neat.
What did you think of Bruce's gold foil project?
So I think it's fantastic. Our whole, just about everything I've ever done has always been sort of tributes to Jimmy. The Russell started for his 45th. A lot of the stuff I did with the Masters Keep series were sort of things he had done in the past. So to see Bruce start off recognizing, whiskey we made back in the 80s and early 90s that we couldn't give away back then, but now everybody wants it, and to show that. And his thoughts are a little different from mine, because for me it was just about the juice. Bruce, he wanted to make sure the package, everything, and that's part of that generation, where we never really thought about that. It was just about, I wanted the bottle, what was in the bottle, to be right, where he's, took time to make sure everything looks perfect.
And we are joined by Bruce Russell. Bruce, tell me what went into the gold foil edition.
Well, kind of like Dad said, it was a passion project for me to bring to light, whiskeys that are famous now but weren't in their day. It's interesting that Jimmy's got a lot of his, flowers in recent years, but a lot of his most famous whiskeys our modern fans might not even know about. It's kind of the core turkey nerd, you say, that, the donuts, the cheesy gold foils, the Christmas rice, things like that. And so I wanted to do our modern take on it, combination of, showing light on bottles, like Dad said, that people wouldn't buy back then, but now trade for big money and people go crazy for. But also, I think if you look the last 3 or 4 years, we're on a real run right now with some older liquid. we've got some fantastic stuff in barrels right now at Camp Nelson. Some of that went into Gold Foil, some of that went into this 13. And so this series will highlight a lot of the best liquid I think we've had in a long time.
Now, you got the title now of Associate Master Blender. What does that mean, and does it mean that you're not going to distill?
Well, I think right now I'm focused on the blending aspect. It's a little bit different than when Dad first started in most of Jimmy's career, where we manually distilled. Well, there's no large distillery in America that I know of that's not automated. So unlike Jimmy, our master distiller, I guess, would be a computer system. So most of what we're focused on now is aging and maturation and product development and focusing on just making higher quality liquids, because our liquid day-to-day is just so much more consistent, so we don't have to be on top of it. And that's a lot of fun for folks like me and Dad, because it gives us the ability to focus more on putting really cool, one-of-a-kind stuff into a bottle.
Are you going to stick around 45 years and wait and see if one of your kids puts together an edition for you?
Well, I don't have any kids yet, so maybe it'll be one of my brother's kids if I don't get on it pretty soon. But I'll say that, just like Dad said, I've got a lot of passion for what we do. If I'm not here 45 years in, I've now been around for 16 years. So I've got about 30 more years to catch up to Dad, where he is now. And if I'm not around, something's gone wrong, because I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
Thanks to Eddie and Bruce Russell for joining us on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth. It's brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
This week's tasting notes are brought to you by Lost Lantern Whiskey. Let's start with the Russell's Reserve 13-year-old 45th Anniversary Edition. It's bottled at 60.6% ABV, and the nose has touches of caramel, honey, butterscotch, tobacco, and leather. The taste is peppery and fruity with a nice balance of chili powder, cherry cola, honey, vanilla, and butterscotch, while the finish is long and peppery. I'm scoring the Russell's Reserve 13-year-old 45th Anniversary Edition a 94. I mentioned the Orphan Barrel Night Sage on the show last time around and received a sample this week. It's a 25-year-old blended Canadian whiskey bottled at 45% ABV, and the nose has touches of maple, honey, butterscotch, and a hint of oak. The taste has a nice balance of lemon zest, orange peel, baking spices, honey, vanilla, and caramel in the background. The finish is long and smooth with lingering spices. I'm scoring the Orphan Barrel Night Sage a 92. Glenmorangie reformulated its original 10-year-old classic a couple of years ago and made it a 12-year-old. Never did tasting notes at the time for some reason, but we can take care of that right now. It's bottled at 43% ABV. The nose has classic Glenmorangie orange marmalade notes, along with vanilla beans, dried flowers, and honeysuckle. The taste has orange marmalade and citrus fruits, along with dried flowers, white pepper, and vanilla. The finish, long and fruity. I'm scoring the Glenmorangie Original 12-year-old single malt a 93. Finally, let's look at the Milam and Green Liberty American whiskey I mentioned during the news. This one is bottled at 60.4% ABV. The nose is warm and sweet with touches of honeycomb, dried fruits, soft spices, and dark chocolate. The taste is peppery but well-balanced. Chili peppers lead the way with a touch of cinnamon, but eventually fade to reveal chocolate, caramel, red apples, and a touch of peaches. The finish, long and warm with lingering spices and a touch of fruits. I'm scoring Milam and Green's Liberty a 93. This week's tasting notes are brought to you by Lost Lantern Whiskey, with a groundbreaking first-ever blend of straight bourbons from all 50 states. At a time when bourbon is being made everywhere from Alaska to Hawaii, Vermont to Texas, the United States of Bourbon captures a remarkable moment in American whiskey history. Years in the making, this release is bottled at 100 proof and cask strength, along with a special United States of Bourbon 1776 edition featuring whiskeys from the original 13 states. Find out more at lostlanternwhiskey.com. Lost Lantern, shining a light on the independent spirit. Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week. Had a couple of comments on last week's interview with Nora Ganley-Roper and Adam Polanski of Lost Lantern on the United States of Bourbon Project. Hugo Dart commented from Brazil, "The Lost Lantern Project is very impressive in its ambition, and I'm glad to find out from your tasting notes that it was really successful. There can be no question that they take their stated mission seriously." And Daniel Whittington added this on LinkedIn, "Heck yes, some of the best humans in the whiskey business, making some of the greatest whiskey releases." And I got a Blue Sky post the other night from Wade Minter with a photo of a Glenlivet 21, the hashtag Victory Scotch, and the line, "How's that for a choice?" Wade is the public address announcer for the Carolina Hurricanes, who clinched the Stanley Cup that night. Needless to say, I approve of his choice. I'm only sorry the Hurricanes clinched on the road, so Wade didn't get to announce the arrival of the Stanley Cup. If you have something you'd like to share, whether it's a World Cup victory dram, a question, or a suggestion, we'd love to hear from you. Look for WhiskyCast on social media. You can find us on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and the email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. Lots of dads probably got personalized bottles of whiskey for Father's Day. Given that the Tax and Trade Bureau's regulations for label approvals are pretty strict, how do those personalized labels fit into the system? It's actually very simple. The TTB has a process for approving personalized labels. A whiskey maker just has to apply for the same certificate of label approval, or COLA, that they normally would apply for, but in this case they apply with a template that includes all of the required information and a placeholder for the details to be customized. Once the TTB signs off on that specific COLA, the whiskey maker can add and change those items without having to apply for a new COLA. However, there is a catch. The personalized part of the label can't carry any language that discusses the whiskey or its characteristics, or would violate other part of the regulations. For instance, you can't use the Prohibition-era language "for medicinal purposes only," since the regulations don't allow any discussions of the health benefits of drinking whiskey. The regs also don't cover engravings, such as those you might find offered in a liquor store, but there, the brand's own rules about good taste apply. If you have something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this week's WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the calendar of events, my tasting notes, and a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Don't forget to leave a review or comment in your favorite podcast app, and be sure to hit the like button. That helps other whiskey lovers discover the show. We'd love to hear from you. Look for WhiskyCast on all of the major social media apps. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com.
Our latest release of Dewar's 19-Year-Old Champions Edition, finished in Cabernet Franc wine casks, made for the 19th hole, and one worth having around when you get there. Keep an eye out for it. Cheers, friends.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2026, and comes to you each week from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.